So again, this is going to be a summary with The Economist with just a couple of changes made, uh, most notably to the think tank and the section that deals with NGOs and other places where you can find really good data. And instead of cool stuff, I'm going to actually have the subsection tantalizing tangibles. Somebody criticized me on cool stuff not being serious enough. First major change here that I'm going to look at is the think tanks. I've come up with a spreadsheet that just indexes these, and so that's going to be the link right there. I'm going to put it in the description. There's a certain number that I'm going to stop once I get to it, but that I'm way off that number now. So, and that's meant to be a place where you can get really, really good, really reliable data, and you can get it for nothing or certainly next to nothing. Now we're going to launch into security issues. And here we have trust busting, Afghanistan's war on drugs. We will talk about the tragedy that has happened in Uganda, the French military beefing up, restrictions on Chinese investment, and Africa's quest to be recognized in the international community. Okay, so first, trust busting. It seems that the FTC is getting very serious about that. There were initiatives under Trump to make trust busting more of a thing. The issue that we're having with that is its rusty mechanism. For so long the American legal system was idle when it came to this, that even finding out how to do it it's been a problem. These are companies, Microsoft, Disney, Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon, for one, that probably have some reckoning to do. Obviously, industries that revolve around information technology and commerce. Personally, I do not like the fact that tech play companies are getting involved in like news media outfits and stuff like that, because then they can really throttle our information. Next up for security issues, Afghanistan and the war on drugs. The Taliban seems to actually be making a pretty good effort here if we're looking at cracking down on heroin production. The research firm Alsis has estimated that in some provinces like Helmand, that city or province, look at the decrease in the hectares. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. 120,000 a year ago to about a year ago, I should say, to less than 1,000. That's pretty impressive. And while I do not want to give the Taliban any praise whatsoever, I don't think anybody can mess up the drug war more than the United States has, so I have that much faith in them at least. On June 16th, a group that's an ISIS affiliate, that's Islamic State, IS, Allied Democratic Forces, came into Uganda, killed 41 people. They're based out of eastern Congo. This is very unfortunate, and it's not completely unheard of in Uganda. This happened before. Several years ago, they had two really terrible suicide bombings. The French military is building up. I think that much of the Western world got very complacent with their militaries. They thought terrorism was the number one thing that the military should be prepped for, and it is not. Terrorism is bad, but militaries need to be prepped for national defense. And I feel that too many people got complacent and said, well, there's never going to be a conventional land war in Europe anymore. Well, okay, then good old Vladimir Putin came along, and we find out that actually our supplies are much more thin than we thought they were. The United States alone, we've really depleted our supplies fighting, two wars for 20 years side by side. Chinese investments. The reason why Chinese investments have to be looked into and regulated, and this specifically talks about America investing in Chinese firms, is it's a national security issue. because so much of our infrastructure in the United States is in the hands of the private sector. Whether it should be or not is one thing, whether you like it or not is another thing. Those two things don't matter, that's just it. So, should these companies be allowed to invest and partner with somebody who has the potential to be, a belligerent, if you will? And even if you're not actually in, say, the defense industry immediately, maybe you're a parts supplier to somebody who is, and same with technology. And there's a sort of thing called gray intelligence, which is okay, I can't figure out what you're building necessarily, but I can figure out where you're getting your parts from and who the engineers a group is hiring, and from there I can kind of infer what your play is. So this is actually a security issue, as they say. Uh, Africa lobbies for more recognition. So for years, Africa has had, its various body that represents its country, and these bodies have, or I'm sorry, represents the continent. And but these bodies feel that they've largely been ignored, and so there's much more of a push. And I talked about this either last week or the week before last week about Botswana. Not just wanting to have its precious stones and minerals taken, but also be a player within how that gets handled. So much of the minerals we use for our technology, whether we're talking, the laptop that I'm using right here, or whether we're talking smartphones, most of it comes out of Africa. And unfortunately, the continent seems to be cursed with having a lot of resources taken out of it without seeing a return on those resources. You could say that parts of Latin America are also in that very same boat. So I'm actually glad to see Africa trying to take hold of its destiny. So tantalizing tangibles, as I'm now calling it, because of some criticism I've had. So Sweden is actually building a city where the buildings they have foundations of steel and concrete, but they're made of wood. Wooden cities, trying to create the wooden skyscrapers and things like that. This is actually necessary because a lot of people don't understand how much carbon emission happens with building concrete structures. And this is made out of engineered timber, which is, I say here, flame retardant to a very good degree where it actually takes it hours to ignite. So I find this to be a very fascinating. I don't know if, you guys are quite the nerds I am, but yeah, this is stuff I love.